Hey, welcome back to NSSEA, or National Student Society of Experimental Astrophysics. And today I'm going to be discussing the way that you can do high school research. And this is quite an interesting topic because it's not something that you commonly see, despite you might be able to scroll through Reddit or see some very niche kids be able to get these opportunities. I'm going to be talking about different ways that you can do so. Not just under a professor, but rather independent research wherein you can actually publish papers working on something that you can do at your home, rather than something that needs elaborate equipment and methodology that we simply do not have the time or money to afford. So I'm going to start by discussing what NSSEA is, because for the people who are interested in computer science, physics, astrophysics, all these various fields that are around the physical technology based sector, we actually offer a lot of these opportunities. Now, we were founded on this very basis of helping students get research opportunity while they're at a young age, because one of the most annoying things is when you have the interest or the capability, if you believe so, to be able to do research, to be able to at least contribute a little to a field that you particularly enjoy, but not having the opportunities to do so. And in many ways, we want to be able to feed the people who are truly yearning for it, the people who are most hungry to be able to contribute. You generally want to be able to cater to those type of people, and we haven't seen a level of people doing that as such. Now, there are smaller student-led organizations, but we hope that we can expand across. Now, we are currently at a few high schools, however, we want to expand across, so if you're interested in opening a chapter of this at your own school, do not hesitate to contact me, and I'll leave my email in the description if you want to become a chapter for your own school, if your own school does not have it. And I'm going to leave a form for anyone who wants to join, and I'm going to be telling more about it, as well as about how you can do research in other fields as well if you're not particularly into physics, engineering, or computer science. So one of the main things when you're looking for research is you need to actually have a specific interest. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about how specific this interest needs to be. You need to have something that you're particularly interested in. So let's say your specialization is astrophysics, and you want to be able to do something that involves searching exoplanets. This is a very broad topic because people are already doing this. Scientists are already pursuing this. There's university researchers who have far more resources, far more money, and far more time than you do in order to actually bring about a valuable contribution to the field. And in many situations, even they can not necessarily succeed 100% of the time. So you need to be able to think about what you can contribute to the field when you're at home. Because obviously we're not talking about revolutionizing the field while you're still under 18. We just want to be able to provide enough contribution where you feel valued. Ultimately, I want you to think about this. Don't do this just for college applications or something where you want to prove yourself to anyone else. Being able to do research experience actually gives you a lot of insight into the process of being a scientist or pursuing the scientific method, and whether or not you want to be able to do it in the future, or whether or not it's actually right for you. Because in many situations, people might do this. They might become dissuaded by the first two steps, and this is like a sign for the future that doesn't say that you can't be a scientist, but it points out the fact that you might not really enjoy it, and you might want to pursue something different wherein it's not focused on research, but rather applying knowledge that's already been found. So after this, I want you to remove those thoughts from your head. Don't just do this for a person, a college, and I know it's hard because in many situations in our day and age, it's like, oh, you have to do research to get into the Ivy League institutions. And yeah, that is a true statement because they want to see that level of interest. However, I want that not to be your primary focus. I want that to be something that comes along as you develop your project, because that's simply an external side of motivation. If you don't have the intrinsic motivation to go on, then you won't succeed through the entire process, and ultimately it's a waste of time if you start the project, spend a lot of hours and time on it, and then you just stop in the middle. So ultimately in this area, what you want to be able to do is narrow down a specific interest. So for example, when I did my project, I did something about solar panels. So I looked first at solar panels and solar technology because I was interested in clean energy. And sustainable engineering was always something that I found interesting, even though it's not directly what I want to do. And based on this, I was able to narrow down, because solar panels itself is a very broad area, like I mentioned, for exoplanets, or if you're going to do something like cancer research or Alzheimer's. Those are very broad topics, so you want to be able to narrow it down further. So initially, when if I can remember correctly, correctly, I want to create like a monocrystalline perovskite solar panel or photovoltaic cell. And then I realized that that had already been like tried and done in like the 1990s, and they'd failed, and it was a very niche topic. However, they tried and they weren't able to get the results that they wanted. And because of this, it actually gathered me even more insight, because based on this, I actually was able to find more reasons as to why solar panels might not be as environmentally friendly as you might think, and they actually released something known as sulfur hexafluoride. And then based on this, I developed my research project, and then made a couple designs, worked on a paper, did all these various research things. But these came after. The first step is actually finding what you want to be able to do. Now, I was lucky enough where for this project, I was able to find it relatively quickly. Now, as I mentioned, you have to be able to at least gain an understanding, and for this, I would recommend that you look into something like Wikipedia, Britannica, all these very simple websites. These are not the most in-depth, they won't provide you with the most knowledge. However, when you're getting started with something, they have a lot of backlinks. So if you like click on a topic, when you're looking at like exoplanets or something, they give you a lot of details. For example, just recently I got into the study of like magnetohydrodynamics, and this, when I was like looking at what the field was and such, there's a lot of things that you have to learn in order to understand what the subject itself actually is. So because of that, if you're going to Wikipedia and then you just like find the topic, it'll tell you what it is. However, there's also a lot of links that you can click. It told me a lot about what like eddy currents are, and even though like this was some of the things I already knew about, it helped refresh my memory, such as like laminar flow and those various different topics that you need to be able to understand more solidly before you get into the actual research of it. Now, you don't have to understand it perfectly. It's not something where you have to be like a PhD thesis in each of these subjects in order to be able to start doing it, because then comes the second step. Once you find like a topic that you're pretty interested in, it might take you 2 or 3 times. You might, like I did, find something that had already been done, or something that had already been like completed or like drafted in a different way. However, there's a second portion where there's another way that you can do such, and basically that's by looking at something that's done, but a way of improving upon it, becoming more efficient. Of course, there's cures to various like theoretical cures to various diseases. However, improving upon the solutions, making it cheaper, more accessible, those are also valuable contributions that you can make if you introduce different technologies to them. For example, using machine learning. Machine learning is something that's a very rising field, especially with the field of artificial intelligence coming about, and we see things like ChatGPT, DALL-E, all these various different softwares coming about to support artificial intelligence. This is a prime time if you're even slightly interested in computer science or have a basics in Python. You might want to get into this type of data science field if you think that it'll make a valuable contribution. For me personally, I found like projects that I'm working on now, it does use computer science, and even if you're doing physics, which is a project that I'm doing, it can help draft simulations, be able to identify with natural language processing. All these various things are going to be very useful if you're trying to make a contribution, because nowadays if you look up anything, machine learning, so let's say exoplanets, machine learning, you can see like 10 different things that university people have done recently in like 2023, 2022, these people have, and before then there was like absolutely nothing. So you want to take advantage of an emerging field before it becomes too oversaturated. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that what this YouTube channel will do. So now, before I continue resuming, I want to be able to point out what we here at NSSCA do a bit more. Because if you want to join, I would recommend joining if you have any interest in these fields or want to learn more. Because starting with this, we're going to be doing like a small astrophysics course for anyone who wants a good introduction to astrophysics, maybe wants to delve into the math a bit. And yeah, there's going to be some prior requisites that you need to know, but it's going to be simple. So like you need to have a basic understanding of physics, maybe pre-calculus, you need to have a good solid foundation on, and we might delve into a few of the concepts in calculus, so make sure you know how to like integrate, differentiate, all these various topics. As long as you know these, I think I am equipped to be able to like give an introduction to the astrophysics field. So we can do like an 8-part video series where we talk about, actually have a stuff written down here, introduction. We can do like stellar cycle, gravitational lensing, exoplanets, search for it, that's a particular interest of mine especially, and then also dark matter, string theory, black holes and quasars, and then astrophysics in everyday life and how you can be able to find something to do research. And also what we want to do is, as we expand, especially the current model that we're using, is that we have students who have different interests. So if you combine someone who has engineering expertise or someone who has computer science along with someone who has physics, you can actually be able to do a lot more things. You can be a lot more efficient. When you're doing this type of group research project, it gets done a lot quicker than if you're doing it by yourself, especially if you have like skill sets that complement one another. If two people are doing CAD and they're doing something that's related to something completely different, maybe some actual empirical study, it's going to be less efficient than if you have someone who knows a lot about how to do like technical research or like drafting documents, and another person who can actually do design. That way one person relays the information they need to the other person, and then that person like drafts up, makes a CAD file. Maybe they have experience in programming, they can create a program for whatever you need to do. So because of that, that's what we want to be able to match students who have complementing skill sets and be able to help them do research. And we have a lot of ideas and conceptions as to how to do so, and we also have like partnerships that we might come up in order to help publish your research onto various things so that you can get your research online and your presence known. So because of that, we also want to start like something doing computer science, engineering, similarly to how we're doing astrophysics, and then it's going to be a good educative channel. So I hope you stick around, and if you don't, that's completely fine. But if you want to, then subscribe. Use the form down below to join our net of people who are in NAACA. So I'm going to continue on now for about how to do research. So basically after this, you want to be able to, once you have your idea down, once you have like more understanding of like where you settle and what you're going to actually be able to provide, then you want to start doing like more research. And by this research I mean you want to be able to learn about the topics that are related to yours. So if you're doing something about magnetism, you need to understand a lot of the different things about magnetism, maybe even electricity, because both of those fields go hand in hand. So once you have a better understanding of this, you can actually get started on doing whatever it is you need to do. So for example, I would recommend that you actually like stop using Wikipedia now. At this point you should have like those basic understanding, maybe write those notes down. By this time you should have a greater understanding, more deep, and by this you should like go to more reliable sources. If you're reading papers, then you try and take and unravel like a single paper that's very similar to the one that you're trying to like do. Generally these professors' papers are available online or in Google Scholar, or just if you look it up on regular Google, you can find it on like the university webpage. On these databases, just click on the paper, download it, and just read it. It will sound very tough, and papers are meant to be written this way. It's meant to be almost technical information, like jargon, without any space for like explaining in like everyday language. And because of that, it will take time to decipher it, and that's just the truth. However, once you be able to do this, you'll have a greater understanding than what any Wikipedia or Britannica article will give you, and especially it will allow you to get more insights into the field that you're going into. So then following this, once you have this understanding, you can actually start. This is the most complicated portion. It's like actually testing and making like a viable prototype. So once you make a viable prototype, this is the hard part. I can't really explain this, but we can describe the process. I'm going to show examples on this channel. However, at this moment, all I can say is you have to be able to design a prototype. You want to be able to use your different skill sets, match something, and be able to create like a novel innovation. So if you're doing something with machine learning, you want to create the algorithm that you're going to use. You want to create like the processor. You want to have the program written, and you want to be able to have that test set that you use in order to be able to get like the model done. And once you have that done, then you need to begin testing your prototype, making sure it's like flawless, it actually provides good efficiency, like accuracy. All these things are factors that you have to be able to like identify, because once you have your like training set done, you need to put it through your testing set, and then based on this you need to be able to modify, because chances are you're not going to get 100% results positive on the first try. But this is fine, because at the end of the day, if you've gotten this far, then you probably have the intrinsic motivation to go even further, and then you can develop this further. And even if at this moment it stops, you aren't able to find a viable solution, or it's too much in your opinion, then you can seek help from like a more professional. You can reach out, and I'm sure that at least one university professor might actually be willing to help. Now the thing is, it's quite complicated because a lot of these use connections, and I found it very, very hard to find one without connections. However, it is possible. So you have to just be able to email like 100, and maybe you'll get like 10 responses. In my experience, you email like 100, get 10 responses, 9 say no, maybe 1 you're lucky with, and that's just how it goes. So then we also help with this connections and stuff, but Ultimately at the end of the day, this is going to be a very hard portion if you're not willing to or you don't think that you have enough resources to be able to go further. However, at this point, it's still a valuable experience, and you can definitely talk about this if you're ever dealing like in an interview or something. If they ask you about what is it like, have you ever faced any hardship in this type of like area, then this is definitely something you can talk about, because at the end of the day you have faced a difficult like thing that you need to overcome, and even if you weren't able to do it, it's still a valuable experience that you have at the back of your mind, and maybe gives you further insights. So obviously after you finish it, if you are successful, then you have to write the paper, and this is going to be the most technical part. However, I find this to be the most enjoyable. In my experience, it's like those parts are the tough parts, and now you've already known that you cleared it. So even if you don't like finish the paper super quickly, you know you still have the results, and you know you still have the knowledge to be able to recall this and write it at a later time, like maybe a few months later. And at the end of the day, then you just submit this to journals. However, we're going to have our own site up and running, and this is going to be a publication that is quite competitive. However, it's going to be good if you can get your paper published on NSSEA. And yeah, at the end of the day, membership in this could never hurt you. So if you ever want to come, it's like free, and we're gonna have courses, we're gonna have different opportunities, we're gonna have like live webinars, and all you have to do is just join using the form in the description. Once you do this, it's free. If you ever want to like leave, or you don't find the value that we're providing, or you're just not interested in doing research anymore, or these opportunities aren't something that you really want to like use, that's completely fine. You can just stop coming to the webinars. But while these opportunities exist, I encourage you to take like opportunity of them, be able to like utilize them to whatever interest that you have. And for the people who aren't introduced in like astrophysics, if you're interested in medicine, then I actually have like a few people I can recommend in a later video. However, this is actually something that you can actually do. Medicine is very viable to do research in. Physics is very viable to do research in. Engineering. The one thing that I'll say is that if you're doing something in generally, even like biology, those are fine. The only thing is, if you're doing something in computer science, it's not really going to go as much in research as it will in creating like different projects. So you know, like GitHub, creating like different projects on these sites, making something that's just a code. And this is not something, it'll definitely be novel, but it's not going to go in more of like the research based category. It's going to be more of you're developing a new project, and that's completely fine. It carries the same prestige in whatever field you're doing it. However, I'm just saying, for the people who are doing computer science, it's going to be slightly different, and we're going to also do a video on this as well. So yeah, if you enjoyed, please subscribe. I mean, I doubt this will get super blown up or anything, because education is not like a super popular field, but if you do somehow manage to get this and watch all the way to the end, I appreciate it. And thank you for joining us here at NSSEA, and use the form in the description if you want to join. Aside from that, I'll see you later.